end of the Canadian summer. Dropped the kids off at school for the first day the other day, and as exciting as that was, the summer's coming to an end. And what kind of summer has it been for Mark Carney? It has been the Seinfeld summer, a big show about nothing. Let's review the show. He made a big show about austerity in government spending after he advised Justin Trudeau to double the national debt and cause the worst inflation in 40 years. Now Mr. Carney says he's going to have a big show about austerity. Well, what's the reality? Well, government spending is up 8% in the 5 months Mark Carney has been in office. 33% more bureaucrats make $100,000 or more. 37% more spending on consultants, an eye-watering $26 billion paying for high-price consultants, almost a third more than Trudeau was spending. And though Mr. Carney has not figured out how to introduce a budget, he's managed to double the deficit. That's right. The deficit is going to be twice as big under Mark Carney as it was under Justin Trudeau. So despite the big show, he's not only done nothing, he's made it worse. On crime, he made a big show about how he was going to address the Liberal crime crisis. Well, what has he done? He has not changed a single Liberal law. He has done nothing. It has been a show about nothing in Mr. Carney's government, but unfortunately it has been a horror show in our communities. Stories of little children being viciously and appallingly assaulted in their own homes by burglars who are out on release. Another horrific tragedy today that we just learned about, where innocent First Nations are the victims. And a horrendous case of a father losing his life coming to the defense of his children who witnessed his death. These are the stories that Mark Carney's Liberals have made more common through their catch-and-release criminal justice system. Even Liberal mayors are turning on the Carney government and saying, what the hell is taking you so long? Our streets are being overtaken by gangsters and criminals. And Mark Carney has put on a big show about nothing. He has done absolutely nothing. His minister even attacked me for saying that people should be allowed to defend themselves in their homes. He said that it isn't the Wild West. I'm sorry, but unfortunately, after 10 years of Liberal laws, it is the Wild West out there. People are feeling afraid. Seniors afraid to go outside. Parents afraid to let their children play alone. Canadians afraid their car might be stolen. Drugs are killing a record number of our people, and Mark Carney has put on a big show about nothing. Immigration. Mr. Carney put on a big show that he was going to address Liberal immigration. What has he done? He's kept Justin Trudeau's numbers. He is bringing in a record number of temporary foreign workers to take the jobs of Canadians. And yesterday, he made an appalling comment. He was asked about my proposal to get rid of the temporary foreign worker program, and what did he say? He said, oh, he's talked to business lobbyists, corporate lobbyists, and they assure him they would like to continue to bring in low-wage labor from poor countries. Of course they would, Mr. Carney. Of course they want your corporate lobbyist friends and your other elites want to stuff their pockets by shutting hardworking Canadians out of jobs and giving those jobs to temporary foreign workers. You are not supposed to be working for corporate lobbyists. You're supposed to be working for Canadian workers. And that is why we will be pushing extra hard this fall, to put an end to the temporary foreign worker program so we have Canadian jobs for Canadian workers. And we want those Canadian workers to be able to drive to work in the car of their choice. So we will fight to put an end to Mark Carney's proposed ban on gas, trucks, and cars. And then there's been the Seinfeld show, the big show he's done on trade, tariffs, and Trump. He said elbows up. His elbows have gone missing. He said he'd have a deal by July 21st, whereas September, there's still no deal. He said he'd handle Trump, that he would drop the gloves, and yet Mr. Trump has been getting everything he wants from this Prime Minister. And it's now clear why Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney. Mark Carney backs down and gives him everything he wants. Mark Carney is losing abroad, and Canadians are paying the price at home. But worse than the tariffs is Mark Carney's own penalties on Canadian industry. Since he took office 5 months ago, Canada has lost a net $63 billion, most of it leaving to the United States, to create American jobs at our expense. And this brings me to the next show, the Seinfeld show, about projects. Remember, he was going to build a record, we were going to build at record speeds, at speeds we couldn't even imagine. 5 months have gone by, and what has gotten built? Not one shovel in the ground on a national project. Not one permit granted. In fact, 5 months in, Mark Carney can't even name a project that he'd one day like to consider building. But he's got lots of news coverage about setting up an office. He's set up an office that will one day hire people, bureaucrats, who will one day receive applications for projects they might one day consider approving to one day begin construction. Maybe. And then on housing. By the way, that's all happening while Canadian pipeline companies are building pipelines in America, creating jobs and energy opportunities for American workers that they say, these companies, they cannot build here in Canada. And on housing, Mr. Carney said he was going to build these prefabricated modular homes using a brand new government department. 5 months in, how many homes has this government department built? You guessed it, nothing. Because the department, this new bureau, still doesn't even exist. He can't even set up a new bureaucracy in 5 months, let alone build a new house. So our young people are without homes, our construction workers without jobs, and our country in the worst housing crisis ever. That is the consequence of Mark Carney's Seinfeld summer, a big show about nothing. Conservatives want enough of the show business, and let's get down to real business. Our fall session is going to focus on very clear, simple priorities. Stronger take-home pay by cutting government spending, taxes, and inflation. Secure streets by locking up the criminals that Liberals have let go free. Solid borders by slamming the brakes on Liberal immigration. And a self-reliant country by passing the Canadian Sovereignty Act, a bill we encourage the government to take from us and put in place. It is a bill that will make this the fastest place on earth to get a permit for a mine, a pipeline, an LNG plant, a nuclear facility, a port expansion. It will open our country for business. It will axe the capital gains tax when you reinvest money in Canada. Let's bring those hundreds of billions of dollars of investment Liberals expelled back to Canada and unlock an incredible boom that will make us strong, self-reliant, and secure in a country where people can pursue their dreams and get things done. The goals are very simple. We don't need a fancy show. We need to bring costs down. We need to slam the brakes on immigration, lock up criminals, get shovels in the ground, and paychecks in pockets. Those are our clear priorities, and that's something. Thank you.
We'll now proceed to questions. Please state your name and outlet.
David Lau with CBC News. Mr. Poilievre, how do you think the government should balance austerity and investment?
Well, thank you for your question. I don't accept the premise that government spending is going to be an investment. What Mark Carney has proven is that all of his extra spending has gone to operating costs like bureaucracy. He's boosted the size of the bureaucracy by 6%. The consultants by 37%. He's putting more money into foreign aid that ships our money out of Canada. He's giving more money to corporate welfare. He's wasting money on handouts to phony refugee claims. That's not an investment. That's money down the drain. We need to cut bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, corporate welfare, handouts to phony and fraudulent refugees. We need to bring in a dollar-for-dollar law that requires the government find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending they bring in. That's how single mothers, small businesses, and seniors balance their budgets. So far, we've got from Mark Carney is radically higher spending. He's not only increasing spending over Trudeau's numbers, He's increasing it at an increasing rate. Remember, Justin Trudeau had pledged a deficit of about $42 billion for this fiscal year. Mark Carney, without even introducing a budget, might be as much as 100% above that. So nobody should be talking about Mark Carney's austerity. Everyone should be talking about his hypocrisy. He's doing exactly the opposite of what he said he would do. Yes.
Thank you. Second question.
Yes, Mr. Polyev, David Menzies with Rebel News.
Yes, David.
Mr. Polyev, literally as we are speaking right now, just a little bit north of this hotel in Vaughan, a funeral is taking place for Abdul Aleem Faruqi. As you know, this is the 46-year-old father who paid the ultimate price in defending his family against home invaders. And yet yesterday, York Regional Police Chief Jim McSween, he held a news conference and he said a couple of things. One is that he wants citizens to comply during a home invasion and wait for police to arrive. He also said, quote, not to take matters into their own hands, end quote. It almost seems as though Chief McSween wants law-abiding citizens to be compliant victims. And of course, last week, in response to your comments about strengthening self-defense laws, the Justice Minister, Sean Fraser, stated on X, quote, this isn't the Wild West, it's Canada. Canadians deserve real solutions that make us safe, not slogans that inspire fear and chaos for Pierre's political survival, end quote. My question, Mr. Polyev, is what is your response to the comments made by Chief McSween and Justice Minister Fraser?
Well, let's start with Sean Fraser's comments. He says it's not the Wild West out there. Oh, really? Maybe he should talk to Mr. Faruqi's family, this courageous and heroic man who came to the defense of his children, children who will be traumatized for the rest of their life by watching their father mercilessly killed by a criminal who should be in the slammer. And I hope that those children will, as much as their lives are going to be much more difficult, I hope that as they get older, they understand the true hero that their father was. I'm sure he didn't want to be defending his family. He wanted to be sleeping in bed like the rest of us, but he did it because of the instinct of a father to stand and fight and defend his home and his family from an invader. He shouldn't have had to, but liberal laws turn criminals free on our streets again and again and again. The Liberals have known this for years. Police officers, mayors, community groups have been crying out for an end to the Liberal catch-and-release criminal justice system. And yet Mark Carney, who's been Prime Minister for 5 months now, decided to go on vacation before ever reversing those laws, and made an even bigger mistake in appointing Sean Fraser as his Justice Minister, a man who first ruined the immigration system as the Immigration Minister under Trudeau, and then ruined the housing market as the Housing Minister. And to give him a third chance to screw something up, Carney has put Sean Fraser in charge of this. It's no wonder crime is raging out of control. My message is that we want to end the Wild West, lock up the criminals, and throw away the key. 3 strikes, you're out. You 3 violent offenses, you go to jail and you never get out. And I'll add this. People have a right to defend their home. Your home is your castle. Someone comes into your house and threatens your family, you should have the right to take force against them to defend your family. That's what Conservatives propose with the Stand on Guard Act, and that is what we will fight for in this fall session.
Thank you. Third question.
Mr. Polyev, Chris Gargas, I'm a freelance cameraman with CTV National News. They sent me a couple of questions. I think you've answered the first one, actually, but if you bear with me and just let me read
Please.
it anyway. Prime Minister Carney is promising a budget of investments and austerity. Would you like to see him go further than the target they have set of 15% of savings over 3 years?
So he's not doing either, and he's doing neither investment nor austerity. What he's doing is even more bureaucracy and spending. As I said, it's all a show. There's talks of targets of one day he might find savings somewhere, but since he took office, let's judge him by his actions. He brought in a spending bill in the spring that ballooned the government by 8%, that expanded the bureaucracy by 6%, that expanded spending on consultants by 37%, that boosted foreign aid, handouts to corporations, and more giveaways to phony refugee claims. Mark Carney is even more expensive than Justin Trudeau, something we would have thought unimaginable. So forget what Mark Carney says, forget what letters he sends to other politicians, forget what comments he makes in press conferences. Focus on what he's actually done, which is to make the government more expensive and our deficit twice as big. Conservatives believe in truly slashing the bureaucracy, the consultants, the foreign aid, the handouts to big corporations and phony refugees. Let's bring down the cost of government so we can bring down taxes and increase take-home pay for our people.
Okay, as a follow-up, if you were Prime Minister, how would you approach this spending review? Would you approach including job cuts and not just attrition?
We have too many, after a decade of lavish liberal spending, we have too big a bureaucracy. We need fewer bureaucrats. That means reversing these massive spending increases that Mr. Carney has brought in. Then we need to bring in a hard cap on spending where we find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. So the government can't just pass the cost on in higher taxes, inflation, and debt. So the answer to your question is yes, we need less bureaucracy and more results. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be the final question.
Mr. Poilievre, are you concerned about any programs that the government would cut in the future?
You know, the mess we're in today, the reason why we have the worst youth employment numbers in 3 decades, the worst housing and food price inflation, the reason that there are 2 million people lined up at food banks is that the government is too fat. It's very simple. The government is rich and the people are poor. We need to make the people rich by getting the government off their backs. Actually, I'd put it this way. Right now, the government has become a big fat man, and the private sector is a skinny man carrying that fat man up an increasingly steep hill. And that skinnier man is about to collapse under the weight of the gargantuan Carney Liberal government. It's time to put that government on a diet. And it's time to start worrying about the feeding and care of the hardworking people who are carrying the government on their back.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference.
Thank you very much.